this is a really important story to tell, and to understand this is particularly now, because, as I was saying before, race is central to our story. Race, race, race. And a lot of people don't like that. And a lot of people don't want to hear about it.
Welcome to the End Game, where we discuss race and sports. My co-host today is Herman Bowles. Herman, how are you doing?
Doing great, Tom.
And our guest today, we're very honored to have, is Ruffin McNeill, longtime college coach, former head coach at East Carolina. He's now the senior advisor to North Carolina State head coach Dave Doeren. And Ruff, that makes you an elder statesman. Can you imagine going back to your days cropping tobacco for $10 a day when North Carolina was still segregated, to be in the category of elder statesman for college coaches?
Well, you know what? I guess that's what the years of experience does. And growing up, as Herman can tell you, in the South, you had to find ways to make ends meet and have extra change and extra money. But yeah, the elder statesman's, as we have that gray hair means a lot, and that wisdom sort of comes out. But I'm happy to still be in the business and happy to contribute in some way and keep me active.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your position with North Carolina State and how you're enjoying it. I imagine you get to
I've been in coaching. This is my 43rd year coaching and involvement. And I was at University of Oklahoma with Lincoln, and my dad had an episode with Alzheimer's and dementia, and I came home. My brother been taking care of my dad, and I came home, and Dave Doeren, who I've been friends with probably since he was 24, met in 1998, 99 at Southern Cal. He was at Southern Cal. We became friends, and over the time, he knew I was coming back to North Carolina, and Dave reached out to me. And Earlene and I had already had a home here in North Carolina, where we're both from. And we had bought a home right outside of Raleigh. And the connection with Dave was like a hand in glove. He reached out, and I went over and visited with him. And he made a position offer to me to be involved, and also have the freedom to see my dad. And it worked out perfectly. So I'm enjoying it.
I'll tell you, Tom, Ruffin just said two things that are just phenomenal. And I'm certain he is passing this on to all of these great student athletes. Number one is family, and family first. And I can tell you, all the great coaches I've been around, they really, really stress that. And the family becomes the brotherhood of your teammates as well. And then the second thing that is so important, Ruffin, and I hope your kids are continuing to get, is about relationships and these connections that you've had over the years, which result in all of these great opportunities. So you had something with your family as priority. You decide you're going back to North Carolina, and because you're such a great connector, here you are, an opportunity presents itself.
Herman, exactly right. I, as a coach and as head coach, I promoted these things: family first, last, always. Team first, last, always. They're non-negotiable. And I always instructed, I was taught by my dad, my uncles and aunts, Herman and Tom, to always talk to people, not at people. And I think the relationship starts that way. And, people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And once they know how much you care, then they care how much you know. So thank you for that, Herman. I really do appreciate that. I do pass that on to young men about communication and how to handle themselves in public and taking care of their families first. I think that's very important.
Herman, kind of relate how Ruff has risen from, like I said, cropping tobacco as a 10-year-old kid when North Carolina was segregated, to a head coach and an elder statesman to your experiences as West Point cadet, Army colonel, and then the business world.
Yeah, I mean, Ruffin and I are somewhat in the same zip code, so to speak, in terms of our life experiences. And Ruffin, we haven't had a chance to talk a lot, but I'm from Florence, Alabama. And again, having this opportunity to work with Tom, I've actually been able to tell my story, not so much from my perspective with any egotism whatsoever, but to share it with young people around the nation. And every time Tom publishes something, I get people from wherever saying, thank you so much. And Ruffin, just real quickly, I can remember the KKK being on Florence Boulevard.
Yeah.
They had their buckets to ask for money. I mean, yeah, I'm 6, 7 years old. I don't really know what it's going about. I remember going to the movie theater where I had to go to the side door and we had to go to the balcony. You're doing it up front. I remember the signs at the bus station and the mall that said whites only for the water fountains and the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember and didn't think anything of it at the time, but now it's so, disgusting having to go to the back of a restaurant to get the food. Then go back out in the car and get it. So having had those experiences, and I want to call out person that actually Tom got to interview for a story he did on me as my high school football coach, General Buddy Moore. And I was the first full-time starting quarterback in this little town called Florence, Ruffin. And you can imagine Friday night lights and quarterback, and this is in the 70s, early 70s, and you're supposed to be smart to play quarterback. And, I never asked him this question. And Tom actually called him up and interviewed him and said, hey, did you get a little grief for kind of starting Herman at quarterback? He said, yes, I did. But, I did what was the best thing. And whether I got lucky or he was a good judge of character, after being president of the student council at a school that was 16% Black, that meant those connections and relationships we talked about earlier were very, very, very important. And third in the state in the high jump, honor society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Had this great opportunity to go to West Point, and my life was changed. And by the way, yesterday, Tom, was Gary Steele's birthday. And Ruffin, I hope you know who Gary is. Gary was the first African-American to letter in football at West Point. And he was—
I heard that name.
He was on the coaching staff, and he helped recruit me to come up to West Point. And I wrote a note to him yesterday, how what he did changed my life. And
man, that's awesome.
Just phenomenal. So, and Robin, I didn't do tobacco, but with my family they give me a rough time. But I do remember after school when I was 2nd, 3rd grade, you go out to your uncle's cotton patch.
No doubt.
And you pick some cotton to get enough money to have lunch money for the next day.
Yes.
So, and now I'm gonna really see if you know what's going on. You know about eating those Vienna sausage out of the can?
Boy, and with a honey bun.
And the honey bun. And then you take that Pepsi and put those peanuts in it.
No doubt. That's
okay, Ruffin. I'm just seeing if you're real.
Yeah. Let me go back first. We used Pepsi, RC Cola. Vienna sausages was like a treat, but a honey bun and Vienna sausages, awesome. Now let me tell you, my first, my second full-time college job was at the University of North Alabama.
Are you kidding me?
We lived in Florence, Muscle Shoals, Coleman County, Town Creek, Alabama.
What year were you there?
Okay, I coached high school from 1980 to 84. I GA, graduate assistant at Clemson for Daniel Ford. 85, 86, 87, Austin Peay State in Clarksville. 88, North Alabama with Bobby Wallace, my former DB coach, who I did not want to leave to go to Appalachian State for it in a year or so, but we lived in Florence.
Okay, well, Tom, he knows Tom Brawley Stadium, where I used to have excitement on Friday nights.
Yes.
So I was a young Black quarterback out there in 1972 and 3 that we had sellout crowds there. So Tom, my high school stadium is where the University of North Alabama plays their games. So we would clear out, the B team would have to clear out their locker room on weekends so that they
Yeah.
could come in and put their equipment in.
It's the same way. Hey, small world. Tom,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Herman, small
Yeah.
world. And you know,
Robbie
I
has-
really love that area. And we felt so at home there. Muscle Shoals. A lot of people don't know Muscle Shoals. The best musicians in music was born in Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
The
best
Swampers.
football players on that strip from Tower Creek, Talbot County.
Oh, hey, Ozzie Newsome, I just heard from Ozzie last week. Ozzie and I graduated the same year, and he went to Colbert County. I went to
Yes.
Kearney, and we both worked for Hibbett and Sons Sporting Goods.
A small world. But you know, it's like what Tom said, you just mentioned Herman. It was that fight early that we didn't think of anything until in North Carolina. We were the first, my mother and dad were the first educators to integrate. We were all segregated until then. I was the first student to integrate in my hometown, and I didn't know anything before then, but the water fountains with the whites only sign, or the movie theaters, the side door. I knew you were gonna say go up to the balcony. It was just what you did. And you know, I did notice the turn into violence area part, but because of my dad and athletics, a little bit, I was kind of protected. But yeah, a lot of similarities. Vienna sausages, no doubt. Now, Tom, do you know what Vienna sausages are?
No, I don't, but this is why I'm so proud to have Herman as my guest, because I love researching and writing, particularly about Michigan State's leadership in college football integration. But at the end of the day, I haven't lived the life of a black man. So Herman adds so much more perspective for me.
No, well, you know what? And I just, you talked about growing up. We work in the back of fields, and we'd have a break, lunch for break. For break, we go to lunch at the owner of the farms at this store that was located on his property, and we were able to go buy lunch on credit, and of course the money came out about $10 a day. So one of the treats I learned was a can of Vienna sausages with a honey bun and an RC Cola. And if I really could, if I didn't get that, it was going to be RC Cola, Coke Cola with peanuts poured inside. And that would hold you over. That's what that was called, old country lunch.
Okay, well, let me tell a little story about how Ruff and I got to be friends. I'm watching the 2009 Alamo Bowl, Texas Tech against Michigan State. And I'm hearing about this guy, Ruffin McNeil, the interim coach, controversy down there with Mike Leach, and he was fired. And then and it was a big game, a good game, and Texas Tech won with Ruff. And afterwards, Michigan State Coach Mark D'Antonio recommended that Ruff be appointed the head coach, but he wasn't.
Now, make the note that Mark started his career at West Point as classmate of mine and Rick's.
That's
I did
right.
not know that.
And Ruff ends up getting the head coach job at East Carolina. So the Triangle area here, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, we have what's called the Pigskin Preview, sponsored by the National Football Foundation. And there was Ruff on the dais. He was one of the coaches speaking, and I said, well, I'm going to go up and introduce myself. And Ruff and I have been friends ever since. But one of the things that I really enjoyed in my stories that I've written about Ruff was about how disappointed he was that he didn't get the Texas Tech job. And then Terry Holland called him. Terry Holland was the AD at East Carolina and said he wanted to interview Ruff for the East Carolina job. And Ruff had the justified reason to be suspicious if it was a legitimate interview, because that's what happens. And Holland assured Ruff it was. Ruff got the job, and then Ruff just talk about that experience of going through and being disappointed not getting the job. And I think the thing you mentioned to me that I never thought about was how emotional it is not only on you but your family.
Well, I've been at Texas Tech for 10 years, which is a long time in this business. And I thought I proved myself as an assistant, then as a special teams coordinator. I had Wes Welker, one of the top returners, did a great job on special teams. Then I was named defensive coordinator. And then all of a sudden, with no warning, no idea, Leach gets suspended 30 minutes before our team meeting at Texas Tech. And I get a call from the athletic director at that time, and he says, Ruff, we're gonna name you interim head coach. We'll suspend Mike for the game. Okay, so I got 30 minutes to get ready. A staff, an entire team, a fan base, reporters, and it went about. Luckily, I had a mentor, Donnie Duncan, rest in heaven, DD, we found each other's friendship during that time and throughout the Big 12 connection. And so we go about the game, and it was really a challenging week because it was out of nowhere. I had to take over this team and go against an opponent, Michigan State. And Mark was such a great coach, fundamentally sound, understood situations and preparation, and we knew we'd have our hands full. And it was the most watched bowl game at that time ever. And that was the stat someone told me after the game. And so going to the game, and at that time, let me preface this, it was known that if an assistant took over at a university where he had worked and had success as an assistant, if something happened, he would take over that job in most cases. So I was expecting, and the guys on the staff were expecting, and you know what? The nation was expecting, because that was the norm at that time. If we won the game, I'd have not just an opportunity to get the job, but it was almost a done deal, quote, quote, to get it. Well, tough fought game, well played game by both teams. We win the game. And, after the game, Mark comes up to me and he goes, Ruffin. And we had a great week. Let me preface this, and Herman, you appreciate this. I know Tom does. All week long, we got, Mark and I became, even though competitors, there was a closeness because he knew what I was going through, and he saw what was around it. So death threats, all that kind of stuff was going on as well. Anyway, we won the game. As the game, Mark comes up, goes, Ruff. Now you got to imagine, our bench is going crazy, fans going crazy, game is wild. And the first thing Mark says is, doing this, when I go in for an interview, I'm going to tell them, you should get the head job there. I go, what? He said, I'm going to tell them, you should be the head coach. Now, here's what I think of doing the game. After a game, you just lost, and he had the class to come up and tell me that. Man, it's still in my heart right now today. So we felt like we had an opportunity for that job. In the locker room, my staff at that time, my interim staff, we knew we had the job because everywhere else before then, that assistant got the job. We knew we had it. We felt we had it. We proved we could do the job as a staff and a group. Well, week goes by. No, I don't hear any interview knowledge. The next week, I go in and speak, quote, quote, to the chancellor. That week I get a call from somebody else, a former player, that I'm gonna get the job. So I get a call on a Saturday morning that, Ruff, you got the job. I'm going, no, Ruff, come in to meet me. I want to talk to you. I go, wow. I'll tell Erlene, sweetie, we got the job. So I go in, I pull up to the facility, and there's one car in the parking lot, the ADs, athletic directors. I go, you know what? Maybe just give me prep for the interview. I ring the bell to go in. He comes to the door and he goes, he's got on sweatshirt and jeans. I go, Ruff, you didn't get this job. I knew that. So I go in and sit down, and the moment we sit down, he immediately starts crying like a child. It was legitimate tears. And his words were, Ruff, they wouldn't let me do it. They would not let me do it. So I let him finish crying because I had been through it my entire life. I let him finish crying and said, hey, coach, understand, do this for me. Make sure all the assistant coaches get their bonus, their bowl bonuses immediately. Let them keep their cell phones until they find a job, and their cars. 3, I want Mike Leach's bowl bonus in that order. Because my next motion was to get in that car and tell my daughters and Erlene we didn't get the job. That was challenging.
Yeah.
That was the first challenge. So we went through that. I go to the convention that Sunday, and Herman can tell you, and Tom, you can. That convention, I didn't know who all watched the game, but after that Sunday at the convention, everyone in coaching watched that game. And for the first time, it was more of a psychology or for me to feel good about myself ever. All the coaches came up, they knew what had happened, they saw what had happened, and they were all dumbfounded. I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
Well, I take the Stanford position. They go with Jim Harbaugh. We got close and he knew about me, so I accepted the defense coordinator's job at Stanford. And then that's when the East Carolina job, coming back from that job, Terry offered me the job, but I go, you know what? This is just another, I don't trust this. And so just like Tom mentioned, Herman, I told Coach, I said, look, Coach Holland, because I knew he was. I said, I appreciate your call, but I just went through the most challenging time and my family's most challenging time in our lives. So I'm not into being a token. I don't want to be a token. I don't want to be a token interview, but I appreciate the call. They called back later, and of course it was not. They assured me, and then the rest is I got the job on interview, and I was happy to be able to go back to my alma mater.
Yeah, and the thing to remember here, that was 12 years ago, not 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
No.
Herman, can you comment on it? On what Ruffin would have gone through there?
Well, I mean, obviously the institution had some concern about the fan base and or, thinking about the same thing that perhaps I faced in high school, at a much lower level.
Yeah.
In terms of, what are people going to think? And it just makes me think of the Martin Luther King quote, judging people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And this is a perfect example where obviously you went on to have substantial success. And even at East Carolina with what some people would call mediocre season, and some people would would die to have, right? They decided to make a change there. And Ruff, I guess I want to ask you this question on that. And Tom and I have spoken about this a little. And this is the number of non-minority coaches that get second and third chances after not being successful. Whereas most high-profile Black coaches, if they happen to have a down year, it's very seldom that they get to have the second and the third act. Have you noticed that?
It surprised me in East Carolina. I'm from North Carolina, number one, graduated from that, number two, played there and had success with Pat Dye, Hall of Famer. And we had success as a team. The most ACC wins in the history of East Carolina. We beat State twice, Carolina twice, Virginia Tech twice. And that last
Beat Navy. Say you beat Navy too.
well, you know what? We beat Navy once, and they were so hard, like Army, as you know. Go Navy. No, go Army. No. Hey, Herman, I hated to hear go Navy in my ears because they beat us 4 times. But we got them that one time. We did beat them, so go Army, beat Navy.
There you go.
So, and that happened out of nowhere. That last year, Herman, we were 5-7. I lost the first team quarterback who's playing, is behind at Packers now. A week before the season, the second team quarterback later on that week. I played that whole season with a third team quarterback, as you know, being a quarterback, and moved a receiver to quarterback position. So anyway, it happened. But and I think everything happens for a reason. I know this for a fact. God doesn't go, oops, my bad. He has a plan for us. Each experience that I grew up with, Herman, you spoke about earlier, helped train me and tough me for this, that you may not get a second chance. So make sure you do the best of it, make the best of that chance you do get to make those doors easier for the next generation. And I made sure I did that. And you're right about if we don't get opportunity of that first chance, very seldom we get the second chance, Herman. And I have been offered some jobs since then, but my trust factor in the administrative part was not high. And I could not risk my sanity, or more importantly, my family's welfare, taking a chance on it. That's a smaller schools, but that comes with it. You just try to keep blazing trails and doing the best you can. And my purpose now is to make sure I'm an outspoken vessel for any coaches, minority coaches, to come through, ask for interview hints, discussions, schematic discussions, philosophical thought process, interview tactics. I make myself very, very, very available for that now, Herman.
Well, I think Tom's going to ask you, but your relationship with Lincoln Riley, I think that's pretty interesting that the audience would like to know, because Lincoln, obviously, I think he owns Southern California now after that contract. But how did that come about? And then after you answer that, I really want to get inside of what it's like when a major powerhouse like that plays, an academy team, because we're going to go back to that night in 2017 and talk about that. But what about you and Lincoln? How did you guys get together, and kind of the protege becomes the mentor and the mentor becomes the protege, huh?
Well, you know what? At Texas Tech, during that time, that's my longest stint anywhere so far in my career, 10 years, 10 seasons, not years. Coaches count them as seasons. So I met Lincoln was a student assistant at Texas Tech, volunteer. And I watched him stay on. First, he walked on as a quarterback, and then next student assistant. Then he hung around and got named graduate assistant, which is promotion. And I watched him go through that and still work. And then toward the end, he got named full time. We got a lot of head coaches on that staff. So I just watched his progress, and I saw his work ethic and how he handled things. Then that last year we spoke about Herman and Tom, Michigan State, that's Michigan State game. Lincoln and I recruited together. Why? We were together a lot. I mean, because at that time, I was going to a lot of home visits with all the coaches, not just instead of Leach. And so more than anyone, Lincoln and I rode together, flew together, recruited together for a while. We got to know each other really good, really well, very well. Excuse me. So when we didn't get the Texas Tech job, we all split up. And Lincoln was getting ready. Let me go back. For the Michigan State Texas Tech game, I named Lincoln offensive coordinator for that game. And it was one of the most well-called games I've ever heard. It was smooth, sequential, did a great job, great delivery on the headphones, and made some really great calls. And after the game, he was going his way, we all were going our way. Well, when I got the job or received the head coach job in East Carolina after the interview, the first person I called was Lincoln, because I knew what offense I wanted to run. I really wasn't impressed with his work ethic. I like people who work their way up the ladder. He worked his way up from zero income to minimum income to full-time. I like that method, the sequential method of employment. And he was the first guy I called, him and Tom. And he was on an interview mission at Southern Miss and Rice. And when I called him, he immediately came. He said, I'm coming tonight. So he flew that night to Greenville, North Carolina, hired him. And while he was there, he turned down 4 jobs that offered him 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much as I was paying him. That's called loyalty, trust. Well, Oklahoma job came open, and he had turned down so many offensive coordinator's jobs along the way. Bob Stoops called, who I competed against for 10 years, and asked him about Lincoln. And I said, Bob, you need to hire this kid. He's really good. He understands it. Trust me. I don't want to lose him, but you need to hire him. So Bob thought I was trying to push him off on him at first. I said, nah, Bob, I don't want to lose this kid. Anyway, he goes to Oklahoma. A year or two later, I think it was 15, 14, I get fired in 15, and I take a job in Virginia, which again, loved working for Bronco Mendenhall. Loved it. And during that time, Bob Stoops retires, and Lincoln is named interim coach, then full-time. So his first call was to me at Virginia, and Herman and Tom, I turned them down 4 times because I was close to my family, my dad, my wife's family, and Lincoln knows my dad. He knows my family because of the East Carolina relationship. Anyway, after the 4th time he called, he says, he couldn't tell me. He said, Ruff, something's going to happen. I can't tell you what it is. because he wasn't named yet. And he said, if something happened out here, would you come? I said, nah, Link, I'm fine where I am in Virginia. So for 4 times, I said no. Then he got named the head coach, and he made that call, and I felt like I had to go. I wanted to make sure part of my mission was to go help Lincoln to make sure he got off on the right foot. He and Caitlin, his wife. I wanted to make sure Lincoln got off on the right foot. I had a great job. Make sure that's understood. I got a great job at Virginia. It wasn't salary. It wasn't anything money-wise. But I had a chance to help a young man who came with me on my first opportunity, showed loyalty and trust to me. I had a chance to help him. And I did. I enjoyed it. It was great. But it was different because I was his boss, and now he was now my boss.
Yeah.
And we laughed for about 30 minutes about that. And anyway, we had great success. Champions every year. And then my dad and his health, I had to come back home.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Herm.
Yeah, Tom,
Let
let
me
me,
fill in a
Go ahead.
couple of holes here.
okay.
So Lincoln hires, Ruff hires Lincoln as East Carolina's head coach, and they have a lot of success. 10-win season, bowl games, put up 70 points on North Carolina, and then after one down season, Ruff gets fired by his alma mater, and the fan base is outraged about it. And not at the ACC media days, I asked Bronco Mendenhall about it, the Virginia head coach, because he had hired Ruff to be his assistant coach. And Bronco's comment to me was, my first reaction was, who in the world fires Ruffin McNeill? and my second one was to call him up and get him a job. And so, and like Ruff said, he enjoyed being in Virginia, and Bronco understood why Ruff wanted to go to Oklahoma with Lincoln. But to me, the important part about that story is the coaching network is an old boys network. And here we've graduated to a black head coach with bringing along a white offensive coordinator. The white offensive coordinator becomes the head coach, and he remembers his old mentor. And so we have black and white coaches in the old boys network now. And this is a perfect story about it.
I love it. Now let's talk about that game in October 2017.
Oh my God.
It's second game of the season, I think, and everybody didn't think. I think Fox was supposed to be the broadcaster for it, and they couldn't do so many games, and it's just going to be this little blowout out in Oklahoma, and it wasn't on national TV, so people are watching other games and they see the score at the first quarter, second quarter, overtime. Help us understand, first of all, you must have been very important that week just because you had to prepare for an offense that you'd seen several years. Okay, that's
yes.
But help me understand in the locker room. You've got these kids, obviously Kyler Murray now is continuing to do his things in the pros, that running back you had, that receiver. I mean, the talent, there's no way that these kids at West Point had the talent that you guys had on the field. What was it like during practice during the week? What did you provide in terms of insight and saying, don't underestimate these kids. They're going to fight you till it's over. Tell me about being in the locker room the week preparing for a game like that.
Herman, great question. Because I had faced military schools, Air Force, Army, Navy in the past, I said, what you experience in the summers, they experience year round, every morning. Our training we experience in the summer, they experience that training year round, every morning, and then go to school. I said, practice to them is like recess to us. Games are like vacations. So they get opportunity to come up here. Trust me, first, they're not afraid of you. They get trained to protect us. They give their life for us. Secondly, you won't find one undisciplined young man on their team. Thirdly, they will not quit. So I had guys, yeah. The old rah. I go, guys, I'm telling you, make sure coaches too, Herman, coaches too, not Lincoln, but defense coaches didn't really grasp that.
And Ruff, let me interject here just for the viewers who might not be aware of that game. Oklahoma had to go to double overtime to pull out the game. Army almost won that game. Go ahead, Ruff.
Almost, and you know what? We thought we had lost the game, Tom and Herman. We really did, because what we didn't, the kids didn't realize was the physicality we're going to face each play. And there was a no quit mentality within the Army football team and staff that my voice could not get them to believe until after the game. And for us to win that game, because we were picked to be one of the top teams in the country that year, we had to win that game to even have a chance at the playoffs. And that was early in the season at that time.
So you had a first and goal, and did Army, you remember that goal line stands Army put up?
Yes, I do, because I do very, very vividly, Herman. Thank you for bringing that back. You know what? It didn't surprise me whatsoever. Because
later I talked to Barry Switzer, who was at the game, and he said when he was coming down from the press box and crossing paths with fans, the fans were despondent. Coach, what happened? What happened? And Barry said, "I'll tell you what happened." You know, talking about the Army triple option offense. Barry said, "I'll tell you what happened. We never had the ball."
It didn't.
But I tell you what was so enjoyable to me at the end of the game, obviously double overtime. Your fans, the Oklahoma fans, got up and gave our team just a standing ovation. You remember that?
Yes, I do. I really do. I remember that like yesterday, Herman, and deservedly so. And that team has not lost much since that time. Bowl game, Commander trophies. Oh, y'all know about it. I know about the trophies. I know about that. I know it's important.
Well, what we hated that COVID, you guys were supposed to come up to West Point the first year. So that would have been 2020. And unfortunately, that game had to be canceled. And obviously, we know how these schedules work. And if many of the audiences don't know, particularly with conference expansion, trying to get games are really tough. And I just want to say right now that I'm so angry at Tennessee for dropping us at the last minute. We were supposed to be going to Knoxville in September to pay them, and they bought the game out instead of.
Wow.
So wow. I'm still upset about that, Tennessee fans.
You should be. Tennessee, don't be scared. Get some. Go play them.
They're scared.
We need to wrap this up. I'll tell one more little story. I have an upcoming book, my second book, on how Michigan State changed college football under Duffy Daugherty with college football integration. And the title is The Right Thing to Do. Duffy and the true pioneers in the 1960s, North and South. And I was thinking about who am I going to have write the foreword? And I realized that Ruff was inspired by Jimmy Ray, Michigan State's pioneering black quarterback, South's first black quarterback to win a national title, pioneering black college coach that Duffy Daugherty hired, and then pioneering black NFL coach, just recently honored by the NFL and the Pro Football Hall of Fame with awards of excellence for his long career. And I started thinking, Ruffin McNeill's a good candidate. Ruffin has agreed to write the forward. But Ruff, tell people, because they don't understand, most fans don't understand this, because Jimmy Ray never got a chance to be a head coach, how big of a figure he was in North Carolina to a kid like you, and then later just to Black coaches in general throughout college and the NFL.
Well, my family, my dad's family grew up in the Fayetteville area where Jimmy's from, and where a coach came down and plucked players from in the South. And so Jimmy Ray's name was legendary for me personally because of my uncles playing on the same teams and knowing him and heard him mentioned by my uncles. And then he was one of the first to get out, to leave. I say get out, to have an opportunity to go play at a predominantly white school and not just play, but be successful. And so that influenced a lot of us, as if we chose to do that, we'd have a great opportunity to. Secondly, when I got into the coaching profession, Jim was already a NFL star coach and was an influence that way. My dad being a coach, Big House Gaines was an influence on my coaching. Jimmy Ray was an influence on my coaching. And so he was a big influence for all of us.
Great. Herman, bring us home.
Well, look, this has been phenomenal. I think it's fantastic for all people to understand the story of people like Ruffin who have faced challenges. And I was giving a speech the other day and I said, Ruffin, it's not about falling down, it's about getting up. And you have done that your entire career. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all people who are interested in sports and athletics. And I want to put a super thanks on behalf of those of us who are African-American and looked up to you and the things that you've done and how you've changed the coaching profession and the tree that you have. And I just want these listeners to know, Tom, the impact that he had on, who is perhaps the hottest coach in football right now.
I want to tell you and Tom, Herman and Tom, for leading the charge, getting out front, never letting the message die down. Tom, I know you work hard at it. Herman being there too as well. Thank you for continue to push and speak on behalf of the ones who can't. And it's really appreciated by myself. I know that, and keep on keeping on, brothers.
Okay, I appreciate that, Ruff. Okay, for all the viewers out there, share this with your friends. Get it out there on the internet. And remember, Michigan State football, a river runs through it. Thank you.